So, Dan, have you ever had the feeling that you really want to punch a boulder?
Yes,
Well, you're not
all
alone.
the time.
All the time. Well, you're not alone because Resident Evil 8 just released, and you were lucky enough to snag yourself a copy. So, I really, really want to play this game at some point. So I just wanted to know, what are your thoughts on the game, and what is it like to platinum? Because I'm assuming that you're close to it in classic Dan fashion.
Yeah, I was one of the rare games that I got release day. I think I've said it before that this was pretty much my most anticipated game of the year, really. I adored Resi 7.
It was
And, you
great.
know,
Yeah.
yeah, it was really a standout game for me. Um, I'm a huge Resi fan anyway. I often recall when I think I was maybe 6, and my dad brought home the first PlayStation 1. Maybe I was even 5. And he brought home Disney's Hercules and Resident Evil Director's Cut.
what
These were the two
what a
games.
weird mix.
Yeah, I think one was for me, one was for him. But I ended up playing Resident Evil quite a lot. Now, I was really bad at it, but I really liked it at the time. And I've always been a big Resi fan since then, with Resi 4 being potentially, maybe in my top 5 games of all time.
Resi 4 for me, I remember I played Resident Evil 3 was my first experience with the series. It was I played it at my cousin's house, and we were always like terrified of Nemesis, and like, oh my god, like the fact that he can show up anywhere at any time. And it was quite unlike any game I'd played before. Like, it was the first kind of, I guess survival horror. It was kind of funny because I think within a 6 month time frame, I think me and my cousin then played Resi 2 and then 1. We kind of worked our way backwards. And in that time, we played like Silent Hill and kind of Parasite Eve 2. And we kind of like went through just like a 6 month period where we just consumed them. But Resi 3 was my introduction to it. And like, I really, really liked them. But I remember when we went back to Resident Evil 1 and we watched, that ridiculous intro video where it's like, no, don't go. It's like, it was almost like they're eating her and then they're going to eat me. Oh my god. But
Yeah.
for me, Resi 4 was like a watershed moment for the series, because that was it was kind of back in the day before that third person over the shoulder thing was the default setting. It was something so fresh and unique, and I know Splinter Cell toyed with that with the aiming. That was the first game that came earlier than Resi 4 that I recall that shooting style. So I think Resi 4 is given a lot of credit, but Splinter Cell kind of like set that emotion. But what a game. Like, just a truly excellent game. And just before you get into Resi 8, I just find the series is in such a unique situation, because I remember talking to you before you got it, just saying that like, it's bizarre that such a massive series has two very distinct styles carved out for itself. It can easily go down the route of the third person perspective, a la Resi 2 and Resident Evil 3, the remakes, or it can do like the first person perspective like Resi 7 and 8. So yeah, it's just a legendary series. And what are your thoughts on it? Talk me through it. Sell it to me, Dan.
Well, I just want to preface it first, that I kind of geared myself up for it by going back to play Outlast, because Outlast was a game I had in my backlog for a long time. I was like, oh, I want to play something similar to that, and then I was similar to Resi 8, and then I thought, oh, Outlast, I never finished it, so I went back and I did the two insane runs
Awesome.
for the DLC. And it was
Well played,
but it
man.
was so scary, the first, because I haven't played it probably in maybe 5 years. So when I was playing it again, I was like, it was just a full brand new experience for me with all the jump scares and everything again. I remembered a little bit of it, but I never I never did that deathless run before, and never successfully. So I did both of those, and I felt like super ready for Resi 8.
Yeah, yeah.
The first thing I'll say about the game is that scary it is not. It is not a scary game at all.
Do you punch any boulders?
There's references to that.
Oh, is there?
Yeah, there is. I don't want to
that's
spoil
amazing.
too much, so I'm not going to go into the nitty gritty of the story or anything like that. But
I would love it. Sorry, I would love it if there's like a reference where it's like, why don't you just punch a Chris? Oh, okay, I'll give it a go. And it's just like, just shatters his hand.
It's even more on the nose than that.
And then the
actually,
end
reference.
credits just roll. That's just the end of it.
Maybe what we'll do is I might maybe just talk in general about the game.
No, nothing too specific because I don't want any
Yeah.
spoilers. So
Yeah, absolutely. But and then after that we might just have a look. I'll just talk to you about the trophies again, spoiler free. So this will
Yeah.
be completely spoiler free. But yeah, we'll look at the trophies and the game itself. So I would say my first thought about the game is that it's fantastic. I really, really enjoyed it. I would say personally, I'd give it maybe like a 9 out of 10. I'd enjoy it that much. And now I've played through the game. Yeah, big time. I have played through the game fully 3 times, and 2 of those being kind of fairly quick playthroughs. And yeah, the first thing that really strikes me is that it isn't a scary game, and it's not really similar to Resi 7, which is surprising.
That's interesting.
You play as Ethan, of course, again, and it's in a different setting, but it's a lot more of a spiritual successor to 4 than it is 7. In terms of course, the first person perspective is, you're never going to get away from that being directly after 7. But in terms of the setting, the story, the set pieces, the combat, the
merchant
items, the merchant, yeah,
is he actually
enemies?
Is he in it or?
There's a new merchant.
Oh, okay. So it's not
again,
what are you boying?
No, but again, references are made.
Yeah.
It really is just a pure spiritual successor, a love letter to Resi 4. It's Resi 4 through and through, really. So as a huge fan of Resi 4, that just suits me down to the ground.
That sounds really very appealing to me as well, because I'm a massive 4 guy. I am quite partial to 5. I like for the co-op, but I think 4 in terms of just the single player campaign, along with like Resident Evil 1 remake and Resi 2 remake, that'd be kind of the ones that I'd say is like super, super top tier. And I guess Resi 7 as well. Like, I think those 4 are just magnificent. So that sounds really appealing now. Like, I like that.
It's bizarre, it's funny, even though it looks so like 7, with the same engine, the same character, the same, first person perspective. It's just so strange.
Just like the tone is just 4. Like, that sounds like a really cool mix. 4. Like the tone, atmosphere, and kind of, I guess, almost like setting. Because I must say, like, when I watched the first trailers, like the village, like, you can't help but to let your mind wander back to the opening of Resi 4 in the village, with Dr. Salvador with the chainsaw coming at you. Like, that is like one of the best openings of any game on the PS2 generation, easily, and possibly on any generation. But like, that just made such an impression. It's like, wow, like that was such a marker for what was to come. It's like, this is going to be the tone throughout the whole game. Just go with it.
I would say in general, like, if you like 4, there's no getting around it. You're going to really, really enjoy 8, 100%. For every distinctive part of Resi 4, there's nearly like a 1-to-1 remake.
Is it just a remake of 4 disguising as Resident Evil 8? And
it's
put Redfield in there.
It's a great game. It's got pretty much everything that I was hoping for, but nothing that I expected, if that makes any sense. But yeah, really, really great game. I I struggle to talk about it with going into too much spoilers. Maybe some kind of more broad things that I would say.
Like,
Is that
what
people
are the best elements? What are like? Is there any negatives that you find? Now you're 3 playthroughs deep, which is amazing considering you've only had the game a few days. But that is just an ode to your talents, I think. But like what
more
are
of an ode, I think, maybe to the game length, perhaps.
perhaps maybe both? Why not both? Why not
maybe
both?
both. Why
Maybe
not
both. I mean,
Yeah.
like so like what's like the best element, man? Like.
Yeah, so I think if you're coming at it from fours, like a love of four, definitely the setting and I suppose maybe just the wackiness of it and the more action oriented bit. Now that it's not to say there's no horror elements. They do try to touch on maybe some more modern horror kind of tropes. Maybe with making you a little bit more defenseless in certain areas than you would have been, and then there was a section in it. I don't want to spoil anything, but there was a section that reminded me of PT in it even. So it seems like it has learned some lessons of more recent games, and similar to Outlast, those type of horror games where it's really just a survival horror.
Is there a segment where it's like, oh no, I've lost all my weapons, you need to go and retrieve them, and you're like super vulnerable?
Well, it's similar to that, yeah.
Yeah, that is kind of a trope in those, like that's a trope that's being kind of slowly established. Like, oh god,
yeah.
It's even in Ghost of Tsushima. To be honest, it's been in a lot of games really, but if it's done well, it really can make for amazing set pieces. To be fair,
well, for that piece in particular, I thought it worked well because it was like a nice little taste of the like maybe more similar to Seven's kind of more horror focus. One thing that's definitely not a spoiler is, of course, the giant lady, Lady Dimitrescu. As I don't know, I butchered the pronunciation.
I think Lady Dominatrix is what she's commonly known as, because that just meme popped up everywhere.
She is a fantastic character, but she's actually only a very small part. She's a very small part.
Ironic.
Yeah. That was surprising to me because so much of what I've seen of the game up to now has been focused on her, and I think a lot of that is kind of meme driven rather than marketing, because I know I heard a few people say, oh, they marketed the game with her, but I think it was more just that people like really latched on to her as a character.
Like I don't know, like I get it, but I think after like 6 months of just people repeating the same joke about, oh, you can like step on me or suck my blood, and like everyone's thumbnail and titles were about that, and you just know that they're like leaning into it because it's just kind of, I don't know, I thought that was kind of driven into the ground before the game even fucking released.
Yeah. So she's not as big a part of the game as you'd expect, but I think there's more characters, of course, and I think they all have something kind of quirky and memorable about them. I think the cast is quite memorable, similar in the way to the enemies in 4, with Salazar and the big cheese, and it's that kind of
like
kind of memey people.
They always have that element to it. I mean, like 4, the regenerator section is justifiably really well renowned and kind of remembered. But I mean, the end, like especially like the castle section, it just turns into, or like when you're fighting Kaiser, it's like it's ridiculous. These games are inherently ridiculous. So I, for one, really appreciated 7's slightly more grounded tone. Like I think 7 was the most restrained the series has been. And oddly enough, I felt like it leaned more into Eastern cinema influences, the way like Japanese horror, like they're very like almost eerily realistic, and I felt like more often than not they lean into like their interpretation of like Western tropes, like the big action hero. And it's funny because it's like each kind of trilogy, if you divide the first 3, 4 to 6, and then like 7 to whatever 9's going to be, it's like 4 was like a complete remake, and then 5 kind of leaned a bit more actiony, and then by 6 it was just full blown insanity. So I wonder what kind of restraint they'll show for 9, or if they'll maybe
Yeah.
lean more into 7. But like I know it's going to be a must play for me. Like I need to play Resident Evil 3's remake. You lent it to me, so thank you very much. Um, but and tell me trophy wise now, because we can say it's
Just
safely it's a
maybe
very good
speak
game.
to yeah, maybe speak to some of the things that maybe aren't as amazing. I think definitely the fact that it isn't as scary as it possibly could have been, because I think there was a huge, you've got the big lady as a kind of imposing figure similar to Nemesis and Mr.
Okay,
X and Jack, but
Mr. X was
there's
terrifying. Jesus.
yeah, the game doesn't have the same like tension at all.
And you just
I
came from
felt
Outlast into it, so maybe that was like
true.
even more exaggerated. Yeah.
Yeah, I remember. Yeah, I think I remember when I first turned it on. I think I texted you and I said I feel invincible in this game.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Now you have quite a lot of substantial weapon area there to do it. So I think in terms of I think it's more of a stylistic choice that it is more action and a little bit more lighthearted than 7 was, but it still has a little bit of that. So I think if you're a huge 7 fan and you're like not a 4 fan, for example, I would say you're probably not going to enjoy this as much as I did. In terms of like the game length, it definitely is a little bit on the shorter side, but I think it doesn't overstay its welcome. I think it's like it's
In the sweet
similar
spot,
to kind of what
like.
you expect. Yeah, 10 hours for my first playthrough, and that was pretty much quite a thorough playthrough.
Mm-hmm.
Then a speed run in 2.5 hours, and then a final playthrough on the hardest difficulty in 4 hours. So that's
It's kind of par for the course. Like it's not too dissimilar
yeah.
to 7. I think 7 may be a bit longer. Like
Yeah.
I guess it all depends on your experience with the games, and like some people really take their time with it. Like they're almost like peeking through every corner, like scared to move. So I guess it's like depends on your play style. But Resident Evil games are always famously have a reward for a speed run. That's been kind of like their thing for a while. So I don't think that'd be too shocking. It's not too shocking to me that like, and also the trophy list, they always have like, a knife or like very limited weapon use and like no health items, no like less than 3 saves. Like, so it's kind of par for the course with a Resi game.
Yeah. I think Ethan is probably a bit of a weak character. He'd be one of the more forgettable characters. I think 7 had that problem as well, but Ethan felt more like a player avatar in 7 than an established character.
I completely,
So then in this
I
game-
agree. I agree. It was like a window for the other characters to be interesting and intimidating and have depth. He was kind of like, as you said, just like an avatar for the player. Like, I
See,
agree.
the problem then with this game is that they tried to characterize him, but he doesn't. He still doesn't have a face, and he's still got pretty generic characterization. He doesn't really have a fantastic personality like Chris does. There's so much lore and history with some of these big characters,
Or like
that,
Leon or Claire or Jill.
yeah, all these characters. It's very hard for Ethan to compete against like an all-star star cast.
Yeah.
Stars. So Ethan, I think as a main character is maybe one of the weaker elements of it. I still think he's definitely serviceable for the game, but he isn't like a standout like Leon. Leon was just, he had everything. He had the looks, he had the moves, he had the one-liners.
The fringe, he had the fringe,
fringe.
the beautiful blonde fringe, and the jacket, man. That jacket was,
was a cool
I've
jacket,
wanted that jacket for years. I've one similar, but it's not that shade of brown. It's a bit darker. But I always wanted the Leon S. Kennedy jacket, and the beautiful blonde fringe.
Yeah. In terms of like gameplay itself, I think the gunplay is really good. I think it's a really good iteration. Like it's a little tighter than 7 was, and I still think 7 was really good in terms of first person combat.
I liked it. I didn't have any issues with it. So that inherently means like it's doing its job.
You'll find the same with this one.
Yeah.
Puzzles are pretty easy. Nothing like at all challenging in general in Resi fashion. You know, it's nothing.
They're more like
hard.
not time wasters, but they're more like breathing points. Like
Yeah,
they're like I find that with Seven where there was a couple of points where I'm like this is just like a reason to delay the story. Like there is no challenge in it. And I just think if it doesn't require even a modicum of thought, and it's just
yeah,
like, oh, okay, and you output what's the first three letters of the alphabet and they're mixed up, and I don't know if the developers go, that'll really stun them for a while, you know. I just
yeah,
think some puzzles like that, I'd rather a real attention goes into creating, say like the escape room in Seven, where you need to light the birthday cake. I thought that was very well
yes, yeah,
done because there was like you needed to kind of suss it out and like figure it out, and it wasn't too difficult, but it would have taken like 2 or 3 tries. So I
yeah,
think I prefer less puzzles but more challenging puzzles in such games as opposed to
yes,
just
yeah,
scatterbrain and just really simplistic, like
yeah.
just time wasting
Well, there was always an
puzzles.
element of danger with the puzzles in Resi 7 because, you might have had to do something pretty simple, but Jack or Marguerite might have been following you,
Yeah, yeah.
or like you said in the escape room, there was very, very definitive consequences
Yeah,
for
yeah,
being
yeah.
slow and not doing it. But in this game, it's more, like you said, it's more like a stopgap where it's like, you're safe now, figure out this pretty easy
Figure it
puzzle and
out.
then
Come on.
yeah and then move on to the next action sequence.
Mm-hmm.
So to sum it up, I'd say or maybe just to touch as well, the story itself, like, again, this is going to be personal preference. For me, I thought the story was good because I was expecting it to be a bit bonkers, like, again, like 4. So I think 7 had a bit more of a kind of a, a, a focus on one issue, and then this game has like a lot of people involved and a lot of different locations and a lot of different things go flying at you. And um so I thought the story in 7 was definitely a lot stronger than 8, but as a complete package, 8 was kind of exactly what I wanted, if
Bit
that
more
makes sense.
fun, bit more in Resi
Yeah,
4. Yeah.
yeah. So I didn't like I didn't really have any like huge issues with the game at all, hence the 9 out of 10 rating. I really enjoyed it, and
And
I think anyone who's into like the Resi games will really, really enjoy the game.
that's good to hear. Like, I'm looking forward to playing it. And the most pertinent question is this: we're going to bring our patented Platchummy system back. So, in terms of platinum difficulty, how many Platchummy points would you rate Resident Evil 8?
So it's a tough one because I still don't actually have the platinum. I'm 3 trophies away from it. One of them is just a cleanup one in the campaign, and then 2 are tied to mercenaries mode, which supposedly is the most challenging part of the game. So I can only speak to the main campaign. So like I said, I did one playthrough on casual, just on the stand, or okay, yeah, I think I did. Yeah, sorry, one on standard difficulty, which was just just a normal
Yeah, just get your
playthrough at my
bearings.
own pace.
Yeah.
Then the knife only playthrough, which also was a speed run and no healing, so that was quite doable because you can get quite a strong knife for the second playthrough as a unlockable item. I don't think that's a spoiler because that's the same in every Resi
Yeah.
game.
Yeah,
Um,
like, come on. Yeah.
so um, yeah, so the speed run and the knife challenge and the no, or I think it's you can heal up to 4 times, but I
Okay.
think I ended up doing it only twice. And
And one was just
I
for fun.
probably, yeah, I probably didn't even need to because you have quite like a generous regeneration a little bit,
Oh,
the same
okay.
as 7.
Okay.
So you then need to, of course, do it on the hardest difficulty, Village of Shadows. But again, that's not hard because you get to utilize the unlockables. And similar to Resi 7, where you could get the chainsaw
So
weapon.
you're essentially in like an Iron Man costume just by the time you get to like the hardest difficulty.
Yeah, you can utilize the unlockables to make the hard playthrough a piece of cake. So I would say in terms of like the trophies for the campaign themselves, I'd say it's like a 2 Platchummies.
Okay.
But I'm going to try Mercenaries tonight.
Before you give your final verdict.
Yeah, like I'm seeing people saying like the game is like a 4 to 5, and then Mercenaries brings up to a 7. But I think maybe that's just because like we don't have like the easy strats yet and things like that. It's quite early.
It's still early days, yeah.
Yeah. So I'd say I'd say it's probably going to settle on like a 5, maybe a 6 out of 10 difficulty.
So like a 3.5 for Platchummies.
Yeah, no, it'll never reach a 4. I'd say it's more of a 3 Platchummies with the Mercenaries. But look, I might be speaking out of turn. Mercenary mode might kick my ass tonight.
Yeah,
and I might completely change my tune.
Everyone wish Dan luck.
Thank you. Yeah.
For mercenary mode, but
well, the faster I get it done, the faster I can give it to you as well.
Oh yeah, I appreciate that. That Dan went out of his way. He got the PS4 version when you could have got the PS5, and
well, we talked about this as well because I think objectively the PS4 version is a better buy because even though you get the nice white box with the PS5, they're the same price for the PS4 and PS5 version, and with the PS4 version you get a download code for the PS5 version.
Yeah.
But the only caveat there is that you have to have the disc installed in the PlayStation 5. But to have the flexibility to play it on either console, there is just makes it objectively a better buy when it's the same price.
And it's still a physical copy. Yeah, it's not the brand spanking new white PS5 game case. Because I'm sure that game collection is looking a little bleak right now, but
I just have one, just Demon's Souls,
one solid, but it's standing
since
there.
November.
It's standing there all proud, though. I'd say it's like peasants.
That was kind of my deal to myself, though. When I got the PS5, I was like 80 quid on Demon's Souls. I won't be seeing a brand new PS5 game for a long time.
Yeah,
it's pretty pricey, and like that's the reason I haven't picked up Returnal yet. It's just
I would wait. I'd wait,
yeah,
man.
It's hard to justify.
And
Resi was only 60, rather than 80. So
with the PS5 upgrade, cool. I mean, you'd be foolish. You'd be foolish.
Exactly.
To not get
it. Practically a profit.
So,
in general, I think, Resi fans, it's an absolute must buy. For people who like action games, it's a must buy. For people who like horror games, I would say go into this with mild elements of horror, but more focus on the action in the same way that Resi 4 was. If you thought Resi 4 was scary with like the regenerator and the I suppose the
Dr. Salvador
and stuff, those elements are definitely still here, but in general it's very heavy on the action. I had a brilliant time with it. I think most people will, and I think the reviews are quite similar. I think it's settling on like an 85 out of 100.
Wow, yeah. On Metacritic.
So I'm definitely a little bit more on the 9 out of 10 side there myself, which is why I'd go there. But I could see people coming from Resi 7 being quite disappointed with it if they expect it like a second 7.
Or maybe even as I said when we opened the video, it's like maybe people are prefer the Resi 2-3 style perspective and gameplay, because I know a lot of people, they much prefer a third person or they much prefer first person, and like the first person might put them off a little bit. So
that's true.
For me, I think it sounds really cool. It's combining like hopefully, I don't know, this is just based on what you were saying, what I've kind of seen so far, but if it can even manage to incorporate some of the best out of 4 and 7, like that sounds just like a mighty good time, that way. So like I'm looking forward to it. So thanks for sharing your thoughts, Dan, and
no problem.
Best of luck with Mercenaries mode. I hope it doesn't kick your ass red raw, but I'll be looking forward to hearing your final verdict on the Platchummy difficulty, the only rating that truly matters in this world, the Platchummy rating. So good luck, man. And
thank you.
Are you on my are you which side? Is it this side? Other side.
No, the other side, yeah.
Other side. So whoosh. Good luck, Dan.
Boulder smash high five.
Boulder smash.